On today's Stories of Hope, we'll explore a story of how faith in times of uncertainty can open the door to new possibilities. Have you ever faced a moment when it seemed like there was no way forward? Stay with us as we journey through a powerful story that reminds us of hope, resilience, and how God can make a way when there seems to be none. Welcome to Stories of Hope. Today we'll be talking about something many of us have experienced. Difficult times when it feels like everything we've known is falling apart. But in those moments, we can discover something unexpected: hope, faith, and a new direction. Felipe will share more about the impact of these moments, and Hannah will bring us exciting news from around the world. Puya will guide us through a Bible story that shows how much a single act of faith can change everything. Did you ever imagine the Bible would have such a story?
Thank you, Jitesh. We have another amazing story of hope from the Bible. Dear friend, have you or your family faced difficulties recently? Many of us have been asking this question, especially during the past few years. The pandemic turned our lives upside down. Jobs were lost, families were separated, and for many, the future seemed uncertain. But in the Bible, we find many stories of people just like us who face times of loneliness and fear. One of those stories is about the widow of Zarephath. Imagine being in her position during a time of famine with almost nothing left. Just a handful of flour, a little oil, and a plan to prepare a final meal for herself and her son. Have you ever felt like you were down to your last resource, wondering how you'd make it through? Despite her desperate situation, she was asked to do something unthinkable. She was asked to share what little she had with the prophet Elijah. Can you imagine being asked to give something when you felt you had nothing left? The widow was preparing for the worst. She was ready to make her final meal. But when Elijah asked her to share what little she had, she chose to believe. She gave Elijah the bread, first of all, to him, and in return, her jar of flour never ran empty. A miracle took place, and her jug of oil never dried up. God sustained her through her darkest days. It's a miracle indeed. Sometimes it's in those moments of giving when we feel we have the least that we see the most incredible provision from God. The widow trusted God with her last bit of food, and God provided for her in ways she never imagined. Does this story remind you of a time when you had to make a difficult choice? Maybe during the pandemic, or maybe in a moment when you look at your bank account and you see nothing left, and yet you're still asked to help someone. When you felt like giving up, but you took one more step and somehow things began to change. That's the power of faith. And it's what we'll be exploring more in today's episode. Just like the widow, we're invited to trust God even when it feels impossible. And when we do, when we trust God, God can take our small offering and turn it into something much greater than we could ever imagine. You know, this reminds me of another story in the Bible where a little boy brought to Jesus just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and Jesus multiplied it to feed thousands and thousands of people. Stories like this and the story of this widow helps us believe that there's something beautiful. There's something beautiful about trusting in God and having faith in Him. Trusting in God's provision in the most challenging times. If you have ever felt like the widow of Zarephath, my dear friend, wondering how you'll make it through a tough time. Maybe today you're going through that exact moment, a difficult time financially. I want to invite you to not give up, to look up to God and to explore ways that you can exercise your faith. I want to invite you to visit us at hope.study. On hope.study, we have many free resources where you can learn more about stories of faith like this from the Bible. And you can discover faith, provision, and hope, just like that widow. When we study God's Word, we find new strength, new direction, and the assurance that God will provide for our every need. If God is inspiring you to be an active part of this ministry today, maybe consider visiting hope.study and donating and participating in sharing this wonderful resource with many more people. My dear friend, you don't have to go through life's challenges alone. God is with you every step of the way. Trust in Him, hold on to Him. The story of the widow shows us that no matter how little we think we have, God can turn it into something more than enough. In today's episode, we'll see more of how faith in little actions, no matter how small they may be, can lead to unexpected miracles. So stay with us as we continue exploring more about this topic.
Yes, Puya. And that just goes to show, right? Just the little we have, God can multiply it and make it amazing.
That's right.
Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back. Now that we've reflected on how faith can transform even the most difficult situations, we'll take a look at another inspiring story from Brazil. Felipe, please share with us where you're going to transport us today.
Absolutely, Jetash. Did you know bread is one of the most essential staples in Brazil? We have over 63,000 bakeries spread across the country, and for many families, bread is the only essential. From breakfast to late night snacks, it's part of our everyday lives. It's not just food, it's tradition, it's community. Brazilians consume an estimated 34 kilograms of bread per person every year. Whether it's pão de queijo, pão francês, or homemade loaves, bread has a special place in our culture. But what happens when life circumstances make it difficult even to afford this basic staple? That's what many people faced during the pandemic. And many lost their jobs and ways to provide food in their table. In this context, Joanna, a Brazilian woman, found herself needing to make some tough decisions. Her story will surprise you, and it's a beautiful example of how faith and determination can transform even the simplest of actions. Let's take a look at her journey and how something as simple as bread became a symbol of hope and resilience.
I'm a cleaner, and at the beginning of the pandemic, I worked every day from Monday to Friday cleaning. Then with the pandemic problem, I ended up losing half of my work, and I was working only 2.5 days a week. And suddenly you start thinking, what am I going to do to cut costs? And you cut here, cut there. Then, as I am an angel of hope, a thought came to me. I'm going to cut off the angels of hope. Then at that moment I said, no, this will be the last one I'm going to cut. There is no way I will stop being an angel of hope, especially now at this moment when people really need Jesus, right? Besides, everyone already needs it. But at this moment, everyone wants to hold on to something. And I believe that it is the time that Anjo da Esperança is most in need of donations, so I can't cut it now. And I had been asking God as well. On a sermon I heard that we all have gifts, right? I didn't know which one was mine. I started praying and asking God, Lord, show me what my gift is so that I can contribute more to the Angel of Hope. I want to contribute with something I do. And suddenly my children started telling me, make bread, make bread. And my grandson said, Grandma, make some bread. I'm going to buy some and take it to the company where I work. And so I did, right? My husband got the basic food basket and it came with a bag of flour, right? Which was what I had at the moment. I have a stove that I got used because according to the person who gave it to me, the oven was no good. It was not working. But I said, I'll try. Then I made 4 loaves of bread. My grandson took one to where he works. Someone else bought another one, the other one didn't sell. And that one people liked. And then they started asking me to do it. Then when I was going to take it to deliver, the person said, you can bring it every week. Another said, I want 2. The other said, I want 1 every week. And my goal was to make 20 loaves of bread a week, 10 of which I would donate to the angels and 10 of which I would be able to replace the ingredients. Do you understand? That was my purpose. But God was so good to me, He was blessing me that I need the bread. I take it and donate it because I'm sure that if it hasn't sold, I will sell it. So there was never any bread left. And it's been a blessing in my life. Thank God it's selling well. I am making the donation, and my goal is to reach 50 loaves of bread per week of donation. And I'm very happy because when I'm making the bread, I pray and say, Lord, may this bread be transformed into a Bible study. This Bible study may reach a person who is in need, who is sometimes depressed, who is sad, who needs a word. May it be reached through this bread. I'm sure we'll meet in heaven, and Jesus will say, this is the work of the loaves. That's where the Jesus saying comes in, right? Pray for everyone, preach the gospel to every creature. I don't have the gift of going out on the street and preach. I'm not like that. When I have to deliver books, I go, but I don't know how to approach a person to talk about any subject. I don't know. And I feel that through this donation, this is the mission I am carrying out. I am preaching the gospel by donating bread to the Angel of Hope, which Novo Tempo reaches all over the world. Where I could never reach, Novo Tempo reaches for me.
I'm very excited because today we have the opportunity to talk to Joanna. Hi, Joanna, and thank you for talking to us directly from your house in Brazil. Now, we know anyone can make bread in their home, but tell me how you turned that into something more.
Oh, the important thing is not to give up, right? If you think like this, I want to collaborate with God's work, you ask because God will certainly answer. What cannot be missing is the ingredient, love for the mission and love for souls. So my message is to never give up, trust in God, and help other people to be reached too.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for sharing your story, inspiring us with faith and perseverance. May God bless you and your family. It's incredible to see how God can use something as simple as bread to transform lives. I'm thinking here, Jitesh, have you ever thought of doing something like that?
Well, I wish I could make bread as good as Joanna does, but I can't make bread. But I've done haircuts in the past. I do cut hair, and during the pandemic, COVID, I did give haircuts to a few people who didn't get a chance to get a haircut because everything was shut down.
And that's a way of making innovation.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Jitesh.
We'll have a break right now, but we'll be right back with more stories of hope. Stay with us.
We have some exciting news from Brazil today. Jota is here to share some interesting insights about TV Novo Tempo. Let's take a look. Oi, Jota.
Hi, Hannah. I have some hopeful news to share with you and for your audience. Here in Brazil, Novo Tempo does not broadcast commercials. This is just one of the curiosities of Rede Novo Tempo, which has so many others, right? I prepared an exclusive report. I want you to follow along and check out the interesting facts about Rede Novo Tempo here in Brazil. Starting with our name, Novo Tempo, it reflects our mission to transmit the message of hope based on the return of the Lord Jesus. Novo Tempo also suggests a positive and optimistic vision of the future, aligned with our purpose of being a communication network that positively impacts lives of people through content that promotes biblical values of health and well-being. Much of this content is produced in Jacareí, in the suburbs of the state of São Paulo. It is here, the headquarters of the Novo Tempo de Comunicação network, that we produce content in Portuguese and Spanish, both for TV and radio, internet and Bible studies. Everything you just learned about and everything else that Novo Tempo produces is only possible because we have the financial support of people who believe in the mission of sharing the greatest hope. Here at Novo Tempo, these people are called angels of hope. Angels because by donating to Novo Tempo, you become a messenger of the eternal gospel. And hope because Novo Tempo's mission is to share the hope of the return of the Lord Jesus Christ. But know that together we can make a difference and share the gospel of Jesus Christ to more and more people. Because if you are an angel, you are Hope Channel.
Wow, it is incredible to see how God is blessing so many lives through Novo Tempo Brazil. And you can be a part of this life-changing mission too. Simply scan the QR code on your screen or give us a call to learn how you can help bring hope to others. Stay tuned for more news and stories from Hope Channels around the world.
Welcome back to Stories of Hope. Today we're joined by two very special guests, Philip Matthew, Assistant to the President of Hope Channel International, and Sarah, our fundraising coordinator. Philip has traveled to many countries, witnessing firsthand how people are using their talents to spread hope and bring others closer to God. Sarah plays a key role in supporting the mission of Hope Channel through generous donations that make it possible. I'm excited to hear their perspectives on how giving and generosity can impact lives and help fulfill the mission of Hope Channel. Philip and Sarah, it's wonderful to have you both here. I have some questions that I really want to ask you. They're not that difficult, although they could be, but we'll find out today. I'm going to ask you some. So Philip, let me start with you. Philip, from your travels, which I know you travel quite a bit, and like many countries that you've traveled to.
Indeed.
From your experiences, what have you seen that shows how people across the world are using their talents to help others and spread the message of hope?
You know, Jitesh, it's amazing to see how God inspires people to take that one small step in a leap of faith that He's asking them to take. I'll share a story from during the pandemic time. There were some changes that were happening at Hope Channel International. Everyone, had to change because we are now working remotely.
Absolutely.
But how do we start doing ministry remotely? Mm-hmm. How can we help each other remotely? Yeah. So I began using a tool called Vivid Faith, and we began asking for people's help from around the world. And we had an old lady that interviewed for a data, a part of my research team. I had people from around the world that were helping me. Mm-hmm. And I had someone who applied, similar to the story that we heard in this episode, very elderly lady, but she was like, during the interview, she was saying, there's not much I can do. Mm. But if all it means that I'm copying and pasting from one cell to the next, I will serve the Lord in that way.
Wow.
Someone who's willing, even in their old age, to do whatever they can with what little that they could in that time, to help with hope. So God has given each of us different talents. I believe it's 1 Peter 4:10 that says, serve whatever you can with what God has given you with all your might. Do it in faith in serving others. So I'm paraphrasing here, but it's in that context, we can see how God invites us in whatever small way that we can. Another story, I was visiting Hope Channel in Kenya, and one of the staff members there was sharing with me a story of someone. They were having staff worship, and the phone was ringing. No one bothered, so worship ends, and the phone is ringing for the third time now. The person rushes, picks up the phone, and the lady on the other side says, I was going to commit suicide with me and my children just now. Wow. I called for the third time, and if no one picked up, I would have taken my life and my children's life. I need help. Immediately, two of the staff members there get into a car, drive for about an hour, pick this person up, and then rehabilitates them to where they're doing fairly well today. But you see, even in this context, it's people who are willing to take that next step and be of service in whatever capacity that they can. For one person, he was immediately dropping whatever he could. I'm going to be the driver today, and getting on, finding a chaplain, who could go with them and adhere and minister to the mother and child who got kicked out of their home. There are many stories like this that many of our team members around the world are being of service during their point of crisis with whatever they can, just serving God, serving in whatever capacity that God has given them.
Yeah, wow. Well, all I was thinking of when you said that, Philip, was, right? Imagine, right? If Hope Channel wasn't there, right? And they were calling, or they didn't pick up the phone right there. First of all, they had a place to call, right? That first in itself, Hope Channel being there, right? And then to take the call, how amazing, or the timing of it, and that's God's,
It's also the providence that God is using Hope Channel for that to be displayed on that random TV.
Wow, exactly.
And for that phone number to be there and say, I'm going to give this phone number a shot.
Wow.
3 phone calls later, they got hope.
That's amazing. And that's really important that we realize, right? That's what it takes. Sometimes you may think, what am I doing all day, right? Are we really making a difference? Are we really making an impact? And then you get a call like that.
Yeah.
And it was all worth it, right? It's like, wow, this is what we're here for. This is what we're here for. So thank you, Philip. Amazing. Sarah, I have some questions for you too. The question I have for you is, you've seen firsthand how generosity makes a real difference in supporting our mission. How can people, no matter their circumstances, contribute and be a part of something bigger through their giving?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways that we can give, right? You can give monthly, and it doesn't have to be much, but just by giving monthly and sustaining our ministry makes a huge difference. Just the way that, Jesus took 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and multiplied it, he can take what you give and turn it into these beautiful stories of hope.
Yeah, because Sarah, always I hear, right, every time we talk about donations, it's always about the large amounts, right, that we hear the most about, which are really important. I'm not saying that they're not. They are amazing. And we're so thankful for the generous ones who do give that. But it's a bunch of the small ones that we think that they may think is small, but God doesn't see it as small, right? If you're giving from your heart, whatever you can, $1, $5, it can go a long way. So what you're saying is that we want to encourage that, right? Don't feel like you're...
Exactly. You can start today. Okay. You can start today by giving what you can,
okay.
And God will take it and multiply it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Philip, I have another question for you. Let's hope it's an easy one because the last one was easy. So here we go, Philip. You've mentioned that giving isn't just about financial contributions, but also about using one's talents. How can we encourage more people to use their gifts in practical ways to support Hope Channel's mission?
There's many ways that God has called people. Each of us have a different calling. Our nature of ministry and the skills that God has wired us is very unique to us. For some of us, it may just start with something very simple, which is praying. That may be the easiest step, where if we don't know, praying that God will reveal to you that what is that skill that or that challenge, that burden God is placing on your heart or needs to place on your heart. Yeah. You can start with some place like that, very simple. For others,
a great way to do that would be to be a part of Let's Pray, right? One
absolutely.
Of our other shows, because we have so many volunteers that are on the phone, ready to take a prayer. Sorry, I just had to add that in.
Absolutely, yes. So it could be something as that, where you could say, hey, I can pray for someone.
Yes.
So coming into pray that way. Another option is, at Hope Channel, as in our global network, there are different needs, various needs from different parts of the world. At the time of this recording, for example, if you go onto Vivid Faith, there's 3 Hope Channel volunteer positions around the world. Wow. And there may be more that may be opening up fairly soon. So if you believe that God has called you to serve, and God, that's the other extreme. There's a very specific call out there, and God is wanting you, or He's placed that burden on your heart. I want to serve on this 2-year term that is in the country of Peru, or this 10-month term in Sweden, of all places. Yeah. The other place I believe is in Ghana. There's a need there. So, that may be something that God is calling you to, but to pray about it. Yeah. See how God is leading you there in that capacity. And then for others of us, God may have blessed us with different skills.
Yeah. I wanted to add, because I think I know where you're going with this, but I wanted to bring it up first. Because Philip, spending time with you, I learned that there's a whole other area of your talents that you can be using for ministry, right? Mm-hmm. To be a part of something bigger. One of those is, or many of those, is like the technical side of, because I don't think people make that connection often, right? Like, I'm really good with computers, I'm really good with software, I'm really good with social media, and you're just thinking like, wow, I have this great thing, but I don't know how I can use it for the Lord. I don't know if there's any opportunities for that. But after spending time with you, I learned, wow, there's actually a tremendous opportunity there, right, for those skills.
Absolutely.
So if you could share a little bit about that in some of those experiences that you've had.
Absolutely. So if you're technically savvy, you may be really good at computer coding, and you're not sure like how you could use that for God. There is a way. Reach out to us. There's an opportunity for you to be embedded in the technology side of things and seeing how God has different tools with the new AI things that are coming out. If that's an area of interest for you, reach out to us. It's very helpful there. Some of you may be very good at simplifying complexities.
Yes. Which is a skill.
It's very much a skill. Like understanding the complexities of what it takes to run things behind the scenes, and you're able to absorb that complexity so that ministry can move forward.
Wow.
You may not be able to frame exactly what is it, but I encourage our viewers to really think about it.
You can look at one of the cameras and say,
if you may have a very unique skill which may be beyond what we may not even be aware of that God is calling you to do. He may be placing on your heart exactly like, hey, this is something that I'm not the person who will be in front of the camera, like me. This is probably my first or second time being in front of the camera. But God is calling you, someone who's very special with a very special skill that we may not be aware of, but God has placed that on your heart. Reach out to us. We'll pray about it. We'll see how God is opening those doors. And may open those doors, it may be in this part of the world or another part of the world for that.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. And I'm sure they love to hear that to someone who knows that they have those special needs. Sarah, I have one more question for you. I wanted to ask you before we go. So here we go. For someone watching today who might be unsure of how to get involved, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to inspire them to take that step forward, supporting our mission through their generosity?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to start with prayer, right? Just as the sweet widow, she wasn't able to financially give and she started to bake bread. I think it's important for us to pray and see how God can use us.
Yeah. So basically, feel it, right?
Yeah.
It starts from inside being something real, and then the fruits of it come out, or bread in this case. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you both so much for sitting here, sharing your heart, being vulnerable. We really appreciate it. Joanna's story, along with what we've heard from you, reminds us that we all have something to give. It's a powerful reminder that each of us can make a difference and bring hope to others through the gifts God has given us. If God has inspired you through today's episode to make a decision now, scan the QR code on the screen or call us at the number below. Together, we're reaching the world, transforming people, one story at a time. Thank you for joining us today.